Hey fam, you're listening to an exclusive and extended episode of 5 Minutes with Akata ? Make sure you subscribe to stay hip and share this episode to spread the hope of unity.
Boy, my people, good people, black people, all peoples, it's your girl, and I'm actually here doing something a little different this time, but y'all know I always switch it up. I have a very special episode for you all. I am here at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival 2023, and we're just here on the red carpet to ask a few questions. You know what we always ask, do you know the word Akata?
Big Les.
Hi, Big Les. I have one question for you. Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
Akata, no, I have not. Please enlighten me.
Interesting. Well, you have to listen to the podcast to learn more about it. One other question. What is the biggest difference between Africans and African Americans, in your opinion?
It's interesting because I've actually traveled to South Africa. I've been to Senegal, to Dakar, and they always kind of approach you as my sister, my brother. And what I found really interesting is that, you know, they were asking for support and financial support because we look alike, is what they would say. And in regard to like the white people that were there, they wouldn't ask them for any money or anything. But they were so loving and so embracing, and especially I went during the time of the pre-election for Obama. So they were more excited, I think, than we were that, you know, a black man was about to be in office. So it was really, really interesting. I definitely want to go back and visit like Ghana and Nigeria and Tanzania. Went to Cape Town, but I didn't get a chance to go to Robben Island, but I did go to Gorée Island over in Dakar, which was emotional, to say, you know, the less. But the people are me and us, and when we look at each other, I feel like I'm home. So.
Gotcha. So you wouldn't say that there's a difference between Africans and African Americans, or a divide rather. Do you see one?
The struggles are different in the way that, you know, here we are in the 20th century, 21st century, and they're still having, even though they're thriving, their struggles have come forward a lot longer than, I can't say a lot longer, but still in present time. That there hasn't been the change that we've hoped, but I think there's support that from them for us and us for them. I think they have a lot more, I want to say, respect for their culture and their people and humanity than we do here in the U.S. And I know I'll get a lot of flack for that, you know, but it's in the news every day that we're killing each other. Not to say that crime isn't everywhere, but there's a reverence and a respect that happens in Africa that I don't see here.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your night.
Daphne Maxwell Reed.
Do you know what the word Akata means?
Ahasa?
Akata.
Akasa?
Yeah.
No.
Have you ever heard of it?
I don't think so.
Interesting. One other question for you. What do Africans and African Americans have in common? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Blood.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fredia Gibbs.
Just two questions for you. Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
Have I heard the word what?
Akata.
Akata?
Yeah.
Kata, that's like karate?
No, but
Okay.
it's interesting that it
Okay, yeah.
sounds similar
Well,
to that.
similar, yeah, it sounds similar to that. No, I've not.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
So really, a lot of people think that it's a derogatory word that sounds similar to the N-word. It's used by Nigerians and West Africans, and they use it on African Americans. And some people think it's positive. So that's what my podcast is all about. Now tell me this, what do you see as a disconnect between Africans and African Americans? Do you see a disconnect between the two or no?
I do, because, you know, I've been here in America all my life, you know, and I've never been to Africa, you know, and to go on that land and to be around my entire culture, I think it would be really spiritual, you know, just to be on my own land with my own people.
Yeah.
You dig? So there is a disconnect, without a doubt, yeah.
And what's one thing that they have in common, that we have in common?
Our color, you know what I mean? Our color, the red, black, and green, that's always going to stand. You dig?
Thank you so much, love. Have a good night.
Jimmy Jean-Louis.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
Akata? I'm not sure, no.
No? Okay. Do you think there's a divide between Africans and African Americans?
I think there is a lack of knowledge from maybe both sides, which somehow stop us from having a perfect understanding of each other.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's on purpose. It's just, you know, just lack of knowledge. Yeah.
Antonique Smith.
Do you feel that there may be a divide between African Americans? If so, what would it be?
A divide between African Americans? Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff from slavery that we still haven't gotten out of our system, and crabs in a barrel and not quite supporting each other is a thing in our community. It's better. It's getting better. I mean, because look at us all here tonight looking so beautiful and so excited to support each other. But it needs to be more. There needs to be more. And it comes from, that the system that's been rigged against us, and we feel like it's only one slot for one of us. So I can't let you get it. It's got to be me. And it's just not true. And so I love that, I see a lot more of us coming together and supporting each other and building each other up. And, we need more of that. We just need more of it.
So what's one thing that we have in common?
One thing we have in common is we are magical. Hey.
Good answer. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Novi Brown.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
No, I haven't. Akata.
Akata, Akata.
Akata. No. What am I saying?
Some say that it is a negative term used on African Americans by West Africans, specifically Nigerian. Having heard that, how does that make you feel?
So I don't have any feelings towards it because I have no resonance with it. But that doesn't
no
mean
context.
it's not valid, yeah.
No context, exactly. Do you think there's a gap between Africans and African Americans? Any division?
1,000%.
Yeah.
I think it's systematic. I think it's problematic. And I feel like we need to change that 1,000%, yeah.
But what's one thing we have in common? What's something we can bind ourselves around?
Our heritage, our culture, our foundation, and a lot of the ancestral mysteries that we share. Yeah.
Keshia Thompson.
Hi, Miss Keshia. How are you?
Doing well, and yourself?
Good. I just have 2 questions for you. Have you ever heard of the word Akata before?
Akata? No. What is that?
So some say, you have to listen to the podcast for more context, but some say that it's a negative word, a derogatory term that West Africans use on African Americans. And some people think it's neutral and it just is a way to describe. AKATA. Having heard that, how does that make you feel?
I've never heard that word before, but after you told me the meaning of it, I'm a little concerned. It's derogatory, so that's not a good thing.
The thing is, the podcast is seeking to see if it is. Because some say that it's not, and some say that it is. So I try to stay as objective as possible.
I guess just the way derogatory just struck me as that's negative. But I'm interested to see what it really means and where it's derived from.
Well, tune into the podcast to learn more. Do you think there's a division between Africans and African Americans? If so, what's one of the reasons why?
Is there a African American, so you're in America. Africa, you're on the continents. So that's 2 different countries, 2 different cultures. So there's a bit of a difference, I would say. And I lived in South Africa for a year, so living there and being with that culture, there's a big difference, yes.
Well, since you've lived there for a year, what's one thing that we do have in common?
I would say family. And I'm from Prairie View, Texas, so family was rich in my life. And when I got to South Africa, that's one of the things that I experience a lot with people. Family is very strong for them over there.
Nika King.
You good? Okay. Thank you. You're gorgeous. I love the fro. So have you ever heard of the word Akata?
What? Say it again.
AKATA, Akata.
No, never heard of it.
Okay. And do you think that there's a division between Africans and African Americans? You got to listen to the podcast to listen to it. I'll give you this, though. You got to tap in.
Okay.
I will give you this. Some people think that it's a derogatory term, that it's similar to the N-word. Some people feel like it's neutral. It's just a way that West Africans, specifically Nigerians, identify African Americans.
I got a minor in African studies.
Oh, well then.
I ain't used it yet, but I'm working on
Well, today we exercising that, okay? But would you say there's a division between Africans and African Americans from your experience?
Yes, I would say there's a division. And it's conditioned. It's perpetuated through certain stereotypes and stuff like that. But I don't know who the woman was. I think she accepted an award for Burner, and she was basically saying that just remember before anything you were African. And I think that's the through line to a lot of our issues. We're African. Yep. We come from Abukalam before they renamed it, but we ain't gonna talk about that. You know what I'm saying?
I want to drop a jewel real quick.
You know what I'm saying? It's topography. Let's start there.
Yeah. So what would you say is something that we have in common, is something that we can agree upon and work towards in our unity?
I think it goes to say like all skin folk and kinfolk, and even though we all share the same melanin, some less than others, but it's there. the neck. It's like right there on that side, you know. But you just have to have the understanding of that. Like, together we accomplish more.
Okay. So unity, peace, period.
Yeah.
Okay.
But unifying under a common theme, not just because we're black, but because we have an understanding of who we are and how we can move collectively together to like really get back our power. You know what I'm saying? Because the earth, it has a season, and you know, it may look like one way to one people, but in another way it look like, okay, this is our opportunity to rise to the occasion.
So for a specific cause.
Yes, of course. Like this.
Like
Pan
this.
African Film Festival.
And that's why I'm here. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, love.
What's the word again?
AKATA. Akata.
AKATA. Write that down in the notes.
Skyh Black.
Skyh Black, just 2 questions for you. Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So some say that it may be derogatory. Some say that it's just neutral, but it is used amongst West Africans, Nigerians specifically, on African Americans. And so that's what my podcast is about, and we discover we're trying to unite the diaspora. What would you say is the difference between Africans and African Americans? There's something dividing us.
Misconceptions. I feel that we have been programmed to think ill of each other, and instead of actually sitting down and communicating, like I know I've had the opportunity to go to Africa, Cape Town, Joburg, Durban, and it's once you understand each other and take down like whatever kind of preconceived notions, judgments, or barriers, we're from the same place. We're all one people, you know, and so that is the biggest. Yeah.
So what's one thing that we have in common that we can use to help us move forward in unity?
Drive and persistence, tenacity, resilience. I can go on. Black people are strong, man. I mean, like, we're 400 years behind, but still we rise. You know what I mean? Yeah.
During Black History Month.
Come on, man.
Yes. Thank you so much, Skyh.
Jasmine Burke.
How are you? You looking beautiful tonight? I just have 2 quick questions for you. Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
I heard of what?
The word Akata.
Akata? No.
Listen to the podcast to learn more. But it basically is a word that West Africans use on African Americans. Some people think it's a bad word. Some people think it's a good word. Some people equate it to the N-word. Some people say it's just a way that we call an African American. Having heard that, what are some of your thoughts?
Wow, it's just beautiful, the merging of both cultures, because we really are one. Even though there's a Black American culture, African culture, we're still connected, and our roots are the same. So reconnecting those 2 heritages together is very powerful.
Yeah. What would you say is one thing that's kind of dividing us that we could work on, the 2 communities?
Just realizing that we really are one, of one root.
Adonis Armstrong.
What do you think is something we could work on as African and African Americans in bridging the gap?
Working together, honestly, because when you see other cultures, they work together heavily, and I think the Black community, we don't work together. I think we always a crab in a barrel, you know, a crab in a barrel mentality, but I think if we just channel that energy together, I think we can be a powerful voice.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing the film. Thank you.
Brandon T. Jackson.
My name is Brandon T. Jackson. The old, grown, got kids, got bills, pay taxes.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
No, I haven't.
I can't get into what it means at this moment just because I want to make sure you move along. But another question is, what is the division between African Americans and Africans, would you say?
That's a lot of lost history. So, you know, they're trying to repair it. You know, it's so funny because our identity, our brand identity is so important as who we are as a people. And you have so many tribes. When you say African and you say American, those are 2 continents. So when we start identifying also by tribes and understanding vibrations too, because it's bigger than just the simple name. So I think what we have to do now is start getting back to that love of understanding our actual vibration too, because all the things that's been placed on us by names wasn't given to us by us. So we gotta tread with, lightly, but we also gotta bridge those gaps to know that we are people of color and we may have different, ancestors, but we got to come together.
Thomas Q. Jones.
My name is Yori, and I'm a part of a podcast, 5 Minutes with an Akata. Have you ever heard of that word before?
No, haven't heard of it.
Okay. Some say that it's derogatory. Some say that it's just neutral, but it's used by Nigerians on African Americans. Having heard that, how does that make you feel?
Obviously, I don't think people should use any term that's considered derogatory. It's about respecting each other. When it comes to Africans and Black Americans, obviously, we have a similar history, similar connection, and it's important for us to respect each other and, instead of offending each other, figuring out how we can work together and how we can connect and make it, our culture more powerful.
What would you say is that one thing we have in common that we should use and glean to when we're thinking about unity and working together?
Just a struggle. All Black people understand struggle, and that's something that, you can be a victim of or you can rise above it.
Stefani Robinson.
Hi, Stephanie. Good. Congratulations on the film. No problem. Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
No, I have not.
Interesting. Do you think there's a difference between Africans and African Americans? What's that division that we have?
I think there's a difference between African Americans in that we were probably more American than African culturally, in my own experience.
And what would you say is the thing that actually we have in common that we can use as a guide to bridge us together as we move forward in unity?
I think that we have a similar experience in the world at large. Although I think that we do have culturally maybe loads of differences and different a different experience in our own home countries and cultures, I think in my experience when I have traveled abroad and when we are in places that are new, our experience is largely similar. And I think that whether that's good or the positive or the negative, that those feelings are unifying and should be celebrated and critiqued, and I think explored more. I have loads of friends who come from completely different places than me, and it's a really powerful thing when you talk about it. I think the assumption is that we sort of like a blanket statement that we do have so much in common, and it's not that simple. It's way more nuanced of a conversation than that, and I think it's also way more of a blanket statement to say we're completely different at the same time, and I think that really just sort of drills down on the core of humanity at that point. And I think that idea can then be extended in so many other different arenas.
Yeah, man, good.
Stephen Williams.
Hello. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
So have you ever heard of the word Akata? A-K-A-T-A, Akata.
Akata, no. What that means?
Well, there's a discrepancy. Some people think that it's neutral. Some people think that it's a good word. Some people think it's a derogatory term. But ultimately, it's a term that is used by Africans, specifically West Africans, Nigerians, on African Americans.
Really?
Yes.
And it means what? It's just a slang word for African Americans.
You can say that. Yeah.
Well, I'm Jamaican. So maybe I'm not Akata.
Well, as a Jamaican, you've probably seen a lot in terms of the lack of unity within the diaspora. Can you speak to that, or what would you say is creating that bridge?
I think both. I think it's two things happening at the same time. There's a lack of unity, but there's a lot of people who are pushing for unity. In my country, Bob Marley was a Pan-Africanist. You know what I mean? Bob was trying to unite African people. In fact, Bob wrote a song, Africa Unite. I think there's, it's about, we're just evolving, and there's always a struggle to move forward. There's always forces pushing against a struggle to move forward. And it's really important, and you recognize in each other, we recognize a common root and a common history, and as Marcus Garvey said, one God, one aim, one destiny, right? So, yeah.
Jonathan Majors.
Mr. Majors, how are you?
I'm good. How you feeling?
You looking good, sir?
I appreciate it.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
The word?
Akata, A-K-A-T-A.
I have not.
Okay. Well, some people say it's a derogatory term. Some people say that it's a neutral term. Ultimately, it's used by Nigerians and West Africans on African Americans. Having heard that, what's your response? Your face says it all.
Ooh, I mean, that sounds like the N-word, don't it?
That's what some people compare it to.
Yeah, I figure if it's being said to somebody that's not within the culture, that's not a good thing, is it?
Right.
Yeah. I hate to hear that.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart, actually.
Well, that's what this podcast is about. We're exploring it to see if it is, because some people don't agree with that. What would you say is the division between Africans and African Americans?
Well, what I said the division is, it's just time, isn't it? Time and location. You know, I'll start with that, and maybe bring me on the podcast and I can break it down further.
Hey, listen to the podcast. What would you say would bridge us together?
Time and location.
Same
thing that separates
You
us.
got it. Thank you, Mr. Majors. Thank you.
Joyful Drake.
Would you say there's a division between Africans and African Americans?
Definitely.
And what's one of the things that's dividing us?
I wouldn't say dividing. I would just say there are differences. You can start with food. You can start with dress. And, you know, I feel like we're the same, but we just grew up on different continents, right? And our experiences are different. But I love watching all those African shows on Netflix and whatnot.
Hollywood, yeah.
Yeah, like they're so exciting. I think they're beautiful. I love their hair, their costumes, their accents. So I think we have more in common than we do, not, but we are different.
Well, you literally just answered the second question. Have you ever heard of the word Akata? A-K-A-T-A.
No.
Well, some say that it's a divisive word, and some people say it's a positive word, but ultimately it's used by Nigerians and West Africans on African Americans. Again, some people say it's negative, some people say it's positive. What are your thoughts having heard that?
I think it's all about perspective. I think we can celebrate our differences and still be different, and it's okay. But we as a people have more in common than we don't.
Elise Neal.
How are you, beautiful? How are you? Good. Have you ever heard of the word Akata? Akata. A-K-A-T-A.
Oh, no. What does it mean?
So some people say it's a negative term and some people say it's a positive term. Ultimately, it's used by West Africans, specifically Nigerians. It's a way that they identify African Americans.
I have not heard that. I was born and raised here in the States, and I'm not as versed on a lot of those cultural experiences. They're not taught, so I appreciate you educating me. You can learn something new every day, and so can I.
Actually, the word is not as popular in the African American community, so a lot of people don't know that, and that is why I have this podcast, to explore that and hopefully unify Africans and African Americans. What would you say is one thing that's dividing us?
Like I just said, information. I think everybody can grow from information no matter how old or young you are. And the more we know, the more we can all grow, learn about each other, learn about each other's cultures. I'm a girl from Memphis, Tennessee. Those things are not even explored. So I think the information that your podcast is giving the world will definitely help, be a vessel to help.
Then what would you say is one thing that we do have in common that we can use to bind us to
our swag, our vibrant personalities, a sense of community that I think all people of color have. Things like that, and use those more to help us all, again, learn more about one another.
Enyinna Nwigwe.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
Oh, yeah.
What does it mean?
Well, I always knew it to be a black American, right? I only heard recently that it's derogatory, of which I had no idea until recently. So, yeah. So I know the word.
Thank you for your honesty. What do you think is one thing that's dividing Africans and African Americans? What's one thing that comes to mind?
That's doing what?
Dividing us, Africans and African Americans.
Dividing us, cultural differences. I think we need a bit more of exposure. When we work together, we kind of understand ourselves better. But when we go by what the media says, it divides us. I'll say the media divides us.
Good answer. But what's one thing that we have in common? What's something that we can agree on as we push towards unity?
Well, our skin tone for one, our energy, Yeah. So our energy and our skin, of course, that's the obvious one that you can see, but we have the same energy. Yeah.
Robi Reed.
How are you, Miss Reed?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm good. Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
I'm sorry.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
No, I have not.
Yeah.
Akata? Mm-hmm. No.
Some people say that it's derogatory. Some people say that it's not. It's just a way to identify African Americans. It's used by Nigerians and West Africans. Having heard that, what are your thoughts?
Wow. Well, my first thought is if they say it's not derogatory or if it's not intended that way, then I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah. What's one thing that you would say is dividing Africans and African Americans?
Other people. I think other people's opinions, and that's it.
Yeah. And what's one thing that we have in common that we can use as our bridge to work towards unity?
That we are all black, right? And our blood is all red. That we have challenges, we have successes, we have dreams. We are here, right? We built it, and we are here to stay. And so it is important that we support each other no matter what.
Mike Merrill.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
Akata? No, I have not.
Yeah. So some people say it's derogatory. Some people say it's fine. It's a positive word, or it's just a way to derogatory word. Or some people say that it's a positive word. It's just a way to identify African Americans, but Nigerians and other West Africans use it. Having heard that, what are some of your thoughts?
Oh, so this is a new experience for me, basically. I never heard of Akata. So,
good job. That was great.
That was good?
That was really good.
See, I'm learning already. But I never heard of it, so for me to have judgment about that word, I don't know actually what to think. Because I don't know if it's offensive. I don't know if it's,
Yeah. What would you say is dividing Africans and African Americans, or how can we bridge that gap?
Melanin. I don't like to say black because, there's so much history and many definitions behind the word black.
Yeah.
And, some think that it don't come from us.
Yeah.
I think they named us as black, and we were supposed to be negro.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the bridge between Africans and Americans. Wait. Let's get this straight.
Yeah.
Africans and Black Americans.
Correct. And it's interesting that you say Black Americans.
Yeah, Black Americans. So I say melanin. Just look at us. You can tell who's your people. You can tell, as far as energy, love. We can all, we know who we are.
Yeah.
And
so we should just use that.
We should use the melanin.
Tosin Morohunfola.
Have you ever heard of the word Akata?
I feel like I should have. It sounds Nigerian.
It is.
Uh-huh.
You're Uh-huh. Some people think it's derogatory. Some people think it's positive. It's just a way to identify African Americans. Essentially, Nigerians, West Africans use it on African Americans. What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not bilingual enough in Yoruba, my native tongue, to really be able to place it culturally. Like you said the word, and I've heard it, but I didn't know what it meant. So I have to say I'm a little distant from understanding how it reverberates. But I do know the word Oyinbo, which we use.
Oh yeah, we know what that one is.
Which we use to describe white people. And there's always just a hint of condescension. The Oyinbo. So I can imagine Akata can go both ways, but also it might just be like the N-word and go both ways in that way too.
So what do you think is dividing Africans and African Americans? What's one thing?
I think a lot of it is, a lot of it is perceived, and I think a lot of it is, at the end of the day, everybody wants to feel like they're a part of a tribe, and people let their privilege create boundaries that don't need to exist. And I can definitely say, as an African American, I've experienced and seen both sides of it, because I am, I appear to be a Black American who is separate, not as connected with my African history. So I've seen both sides, and it's a little frustrating, but I do think, at the end of the day, people just need to
put their privilege aside and be open-armed and realize that there's more that unites us than separates us.
And what would you say, speaking to that unity, what's the thing that does unite us, or what's something that we can kind of bind ourselves around, use that as a compass to kind of reach towards unity?
Well, I hate to use something that speaks of division, but I will say that the problems of colorism are universal, and they go throughout the whole world. And so, you know, on the one hand, you know, we don't want to focus on the negative, but on the other hand, that will always be a bonding agent. That is a thing that we've all experienced in different areas of the diaspora.
Maybe you know the true definition of Akata. If so, let me know. If you like this episode, subscribe, rate, share, and help spread the hope of unity. On Hiyan Zekbe, y'all. I leave you with love, joy, faith, hope. Peace.